Hello and welcome to Copy That Resonates, how to find the exact words that attract your ideal clients and get them excited to work with you. My name is Cheryl Binney. I'm the founder of copylove.com, and this is one of my favorite things to talk about because I meet so many amazing entrepreneurs who are passionate about what they do, but they feel like they don't know how to talk about their work. Now, if you're watching this video, it's probably because you believe in your work and you're serious about creating a successful business. And a big part of that involves being able to tell people about your work in a way that feels authentic to you, but also gets your potential clients excited to learn more. And when I work with entrepreneurs, one of the biggest questions that I get from them is, how do I talk about my work in a way that's compelling? Because we've all been there. Someone seems interested in your work. Awesome. And this person seems like maybe she's going to be a good fit as a client, even better. And she's interested in what you're talking about. She wants to hear more. And you start getting really excited because, this is the work that you love after all. And someone's asking you to talk about it. So you dive right into talking about your methodology and you feel like you're just like being passionate and really saying what you want to say. And then maybe a few minutes into what you're saying, you start to wonder if the other person is losing interest. Maybe her eyes are kind of drifting around. Maybe she's got that smile plastered on her face where it's like the polite, interested face, but you can tell it's just plastered on there, not really because she's engaged in what you're saying. So you start to get uncomfortable or insecure, and maybe you trail off as quickly as possible to kind of wrap it up. Or maybe you double down and you really try to express what makes this work so powerful because you really want her to understand, because you're like, oh my gosh, you don't understand. You need this. Why can't you understand that? And then despite all of your best efforts, the other person says something like polite, like, wow, that's so cool, or that's so interesting. And maybe she says a few more things, asks some polite questions, but eventually she drifts away and she's never asked to follow up with you. There's no way to continue that conversation, and you're left thinking, oh man, what did I say wrong? Or maybe you have a sneaking suspicion that the same thing is happening when people visit your website. Maybe they skim the first few lines of copy, they're jumping around, but for some reason, you know they are not engaged or motivated by what you have written on your website because they're not clicking through to other pages, they're not purchasing what you have for sale, they're not scheduling a call with you, they're not signing up for your email list, they're not doing any of the things you want them to do. So what gives? Why doesn't anyone seem to be interested, even the people that you know desperately need your help? Well, the thing is, I get it, and I want you to know that you are not alone, because I work with business owners every single day who are faced with this exact same dilemma. The problem is usually that you're using language and talking about concepts that the other person doesn't identify with. She can't see herself in the things you're talking about. We'll get into this more in just a couple minutes. But the good news is there's a very simple solution to this. The key is to hook their attention by talking about things that they do identify with, by using language that they identify with. And when I say this is the key, I mean this is the key. And you might be wondering, okay, but who are you to tell me this? Why should I pay attention to you? Well, hi, my name is Cheryl Binney, and I'm a copywriting and messaging strategist for entrepreneurs with personal brands. And basically, I help business owners write their websites, their email newsletters, their launches and sales material. And I do it with a focus on building relationships and inspiring action in your readers and your audience. And since I started doing this work in 2012, I've worked on everything from short little 15-minute presentations to 7-figure launches. So I've helped business owners who are just getting started at zero. And I've worked with business owners who have multiple 7-figure businesses. And many of them are some of the biggest names in their own industries today. And whenever I work with a client, no matter what level they're at, I always start by getting clear and helping them get clear on the language that they need to use in order to connect with their ideal clients. And that's what we're going to talk about in this training. So in this video, you're going to discover why people just aren't getting it when you talk or write about your work. You're also going to learn a very simple solution to crafting copy and video scripts, webinar scripts, whatever it is you're writing. It'll be a way to craft copy that gets your ideal client's attention and makes her want to know more. And then you're also going to learn the 5 places to find your ideal client's language. And this is the language that makes her sit up and pay attention. And you've also received a downloadable workbook to go along with this video training. And in that workbook, I give you some brainstorming exercises to help you take what you learn in this video and actually start writing copy that you can use in your business immediately. And don't worry, if you're still having trouble at the end of this training, I'll give you a way to get some more in-depth personalized guidance. Ready? Let's dive in. So the goal with all of this, when you're talking to people, when you're writing your copy, you want them to think, wow, you're reading my mind. You really get me. You want to help them identify themselves as one of your people and that you understand them, where they're coming from, what their hopes are, what their dreams are, and what they're dealing with. And the way you do that is by talking about their problem or current situation. But more importantly, you do that by speaking in their language. Because when you're talking to or writing to potential clients and you're trying to paint that picture of this is what your life looks like right now, this is what it could look like, speaking in their language, this is the fastest way to make them feel like you, quote unquote, get them. And when you use the exact same phrase that is already running through their mind 20 times a day, they know that you understand them and where they're coming from. And they're much more likely to feel a connection to you and to feel like they resonate with you, which means they're more likely to hire you or buy from you in the end. So when I say speak in their language, what I'm also saying here is speak in their language, not yours. I know. What does that even mean? Let's talk about it. So, there's a thing called the curse of knowledge. You are an expert in your topic. Yes, even those of you who are just getting started in your business, you still know more about your topic than your potential clients do. So you're an expert in it. And that means you have the curse of knowledge. It means your vocabulary for talking about your topic is different from how your potential clients talk about it because they don't have the same knowledge that you do. They don't understand that maybe the problem that they think they're struggling with isn't what the real underlying problem is. And you, as the expert, you know what the true underlying problem is, but they're not even paying attention to that. Or maybe they're thinking what the dream is, what the thing is that they want, and you, as the expert, you're like, man, you could do so much more than that if you only knew. Why are you dreaming so small? So a lot of times what happens when we're talking to potential clients is we jump straight to the end. We jump to, well, this is what the actual problem is that they're not aware of. Or we start talking about the kinds of results and transformations that we can get for them if they would just go through our process and work with us. But those are too far removed for them. They don't see themselves in that. They can't identify with that version of the problem or of the dream. So, for example, let's say you are a health coach who specializes in weight management. And as the expert, you might know that the key to your client losing weight is that she needs to learn how to listen to her body. But the thing is, she isn't worried about listening to her body. She's worried about losing weight. So if you introduce yourself or your website starts off right away by talking about listening to your body, she might smile and nod, but she's not going to identify with it right away. If you know your person is just worried about losing weight, you can't jump in by talking about, I teach women how to listen to their body. You have to start by talking about the thing they are currently worried about or trying to change. So the solution here is to talk about her problem in her language. Use her phrases and her words and her awareness level to talk about what that problem looks like and what the dream, what the future possibility can look like. So, okay, great. Maybe you're with me. You're like, okay, Cheryl, I'm totally on board for this, but where do I find that language? How do I know what she's talking about, what she says? Well, let's find out, because I've got 5 places for you to find your ideal client's language. The first one is when you are doing your sales conversations, and these are also called enrollment conversations. A lot of times these are the strategy sessions, like the free strategy session that someone will offer, and you're doing that to get them to sign up for a call with you where you can do a little bit of work with them, and then at the end, if they seem like a good fit, you offer them whatever it is you're selling. So these are your sales conversations, and this is the perfect place to get this language, because you're already asking them questions like, so what's going on? Where are you struggling? What is it that you want to create in your life? And we'll go through some questions you can ask in this scenario in just a minute. But what you want to do during that conversation is, as they're talking, as they're sharing these things with you, take notes, write down what they say, and write it down verbatim. Exactly how they say it. Don't try to translate it. If they're saying, I want to lose weight and I don't like looking at myself in the mirror when I get out of the shower, and they're giving you these really juicy details, don't just scribble down has self-image issues. That's not what she said. If she says I have self-image issues, sure, write that down. But if she doesn't say it, then don't write that down. Actually try to get those very specific examples and real life scenarios that they're sharing with you. And don't worry, you're going to be mindful of privacy. You're not going to like turn around and suddenly share someone's very, very private conversation or situation that they shared. But I'll tell you what you're going to do with this in a few minutes. So that's the first place, is your sales conversations. Place number 2 is surveys. You want to send surveys to your email list or ask questions in Facebook groups to find out how they talk about this stuff. And you can ask them questions like, what are you struggling with right now? What's your biggest question around XYZ topic? What have you tried in the past? What is it that you want for yourself? So you can send those surveys out. The third place to look for your client's language is in reviews. And this is for those of you who are like, well, I don't have an email list. I don't know any Facebook groups where I could do that. And I'm not having any sales conversations right now. So another great place to look at reviews that are online that exist for other things in your industry. So maybe go look at Amazon and find a book that is in your industry where you're like, I think this person probably talked in a similar way or talked about the topic that I'm really interested in, that I'm trying to help people on, and then go read the reviews and see if people are saying anything that's helpful. You're not looking for the language where it's like, this book was great, I learned this and that, or this book had so many typos. You're not looking for those reviews. You're looking for the ones where someone actually shares something like, oh, this book was fantastic. I've been struggling with XYZ for 5 years, and maybe they talk a little bit about what that struggle looked like for them. That's what you're trying to look for in those reviews. And then place number 4 that you can look are online forums. So these are forums are places, they're like support communities. It's a big thread where people are online and they talk about their issues. And these places, well, first of all, they're very touching because people are so open and vulnerable in them. And other people are so generous and caring with what they share back and how they try to help and support each other. So you can try to look through the forums and see if there are any themes or patterns that show up. Again, you're not just going to take someone's private stuff and share it somewhere else. What you're doing is you're looking for patterns that you're like, okay, a lot of people are talking about this kind of thing, or this scenario shows up a lot. Like, I do great on my diet when I'm at home, but then at work, my coworker always brings in cookies and it's game over. So maybe if you hear that scenario pop up over and over again, where it's not like, oh, this was a very specific thing that was very private to one individual, look for the things where you're like, a lot of my people are dealing with this kind of scenario. And the final place to look for your ideal client's language when all else fails, if you can't find anything in those other places, just start with your normal everyday conversations. So this is when you're at a social gathering, or you're at the grocery store, or you're picking up your kid at school and the other moms are around or the dads are around, and you know you're talking to someone who would be a good fit for you. You're like, oh, I think you could be my client. That's when you want to get interested and start asking questions to get them to talk about their challenges. A lot of times when this comes up, we automatically dive into talking about our own work because we're like, oh my gosh, someone who might hire me. And that's when we get into trouble because we do what we talked about earlier, where we go straight into talking about our methodology and we're talking with the expert speak and the wrong vocabulary. So until you get clear on what the language is that you can use around these people, you want to focus more on listening to them and start to take mental notes about what they're talking about and the things they're describing. Get really curious. One, you're going to get some great material for writing your copy, but two, it's really going to make that person feel heard and seen in a way that they just wouldn't if you plowed in and just started talking about your business. So that's actually a great way to form that relationship as you're doing this market research. And while they're talking, and this goes for all of the other places to look for your ideal client's language too, is you want to be listening for complaints or worries. Like if someone is complaining about what happens when they get home or what's happening in their relationship or, whatever is relevant to your business, look for those complaints. And then places where they're worried or they're talking about being stressed out or tired, those are the things that you want to pay attention to. So those were the 5 places to find your ideal client's language. The next thing I want to do is give you some questions that you can ask in those scenarios, and especially in your sales conversations. So you can say something like, so describe to me what's going on right now. Or what is it you'd like to create or change or do or have? And then what do you think is stopping you from creating or changing or doing or having that? Where are you struggling? What kind of obstacles are showing up for you? You can ask them, how does that show up in your life? Can you give me some examples of what happens? So if they're like, oh, I've been trying every diet on the books for years and just nothing has ever stuck. And then you can say, so what does that actually look like? How does it show up in your life? And maybe they'll go into more specifics. And that's where you start to get those very clear real life examples that you can use in your copy. Another great thing to ask them, for all of you coaches out there, you're probably familiar with this one, and wonderful. You already have a lot of things that you can use at your disposal if you've learned how to ask these questions. Now you just have to start paying attention and taking notes about how they're using their words. So you can say, if I could wave a magic wand right now and change your life to be exactly how you want it, what would your life look like 3 months from now? And that's where they're going to start talking about the dream. They're going to start talking about the thing that they really want. And that's going to do 2 things. It'll give you the language that you can use to paint the picture of what's possible from working with you. But it's also really going to open your eyes to what it is that your people actually want. Because again, sometimes as the experts, we're jumping way far ahead of what they even realize is possible. So you always have to start by meeting them where they're at and talking about the things that they are already thinking about and dreaming about. That's how you hook their attention and pull them in to learn more. So then after you do that, after you've gotten all of this stuff going, as you're doing this, you want to collect these words and phrases and specifically look for the ones that show up over and over again. Like I said, you are looking for patterns, you're looking for similarities. If you're like, man, a lot of my people keep saying this particular phrase over and over again, or I've heard a number of people have some kind of similar scenario that happens, maybe like the cookies at work kind of thing. Those are the things that you really want to highlight and start to use in your writing and your messaging. So what you're going to do is collect those words and phrases, and then you're going to start using them. And remember, the workbook gives you some exercises for how you can start to use them, for how to brainstorm those words and phrases and start to turn them into something that you can use on your website or in your speaking events or wherever you're trying to talk to your people. Okay. So some of you might be thinking, but Cheryl, if I'm writing in my ideal client's language, what about my voice? Especially if you're a business with a personal brand where the brand personality and voice is you. And it's supposed to sound like you. It's supposed to represent you. People are supposed to be connecting with you and falling in love with you. So if I'm telling you, write in their words, what happens to your voice? So the good news is, I know some of you are still kind of in that zone where you're like, I don't know what my voice is. Or you try to write your own copy and then you read it and you're like, that sounds nothing like me. Or it comes out formal and stiff and it's just not you. So the good news is, if you're still in that zone where you're struggling to develop your voice or find your voice or just uncover your voice, then using your ideal client's language is a fantastic way to go ahead and get your writing done and have writing that is effective and not have to worry about your voice. What you can do is start to play with your voice elements around these things that you're already using the client's language for. So let's say you've done a whole list where you said, does any of this sound familiar? And then you do a whole bullet list of different scenarios and examples that your people have been telling you about. And then afterward, you're like, well, guess what? It's not your fault. The things that frame where you're using their words, that's where you can start to play with your voice. You can see, well, do you have more of a sense of humor? Are you a little irreverent? Are you a little more sophisticated and formal with your language? So you can decide how casual to get, and that can be a great place just to start to play around with your voice while the heavy lifting is still being done by the phrases you've gotten from your ideal clients. Now, for those of you who feel like you do have a voice already, or you're ready to start playing with it more, that's great too. You can do this and still use your client's language. You want to use the client's language when you are talking about the problem or the dream. The stuff we've been talking about the whole time, the problem or the dream. And then you can use your voice when educating. But here's the thing, you don't start out by educating. When you start a conversation with someone, when you start a speaking event, when you start writing your homepage copy, you don't launch straight into trying to teach them about your approach and your methodology and what you believe in your philosophy. You have to hook their attention first. And that's what the problem has been for a lot of you, I'm sure, is you're trying to go straight into education and you're talking about the stuff that they don't even understand yet. They're not connected to it. They don't see how it connects to them yet. So you have to start by hooking them in by talking about the stuff they do recognize, the stuff they can identify with, the stuff that they hear or they read and they're like, oh, that's me. Is she spying on me through my window? Because that is what my day looks like. When you transition out of that, and it's you've done something where you're talking about this is what the problem looks like. Maybe you've done a little bit like, imagine what it could be like if you da-da-da-da-da, and you start talking about the dream in the way they've been talking about it. Then you can transition into education by saying something like, well, guess what? It's possible. You've just never learned XYZ. Or what I've discovered over the years of working with my clients is there are 3 simple steps to, or there are 5 secrets to. And that's when you can go into sharing your actual methodology and your philosophy and what you believe. That's when you can start to use your voice. But you still have to be aware of some things even when you go into the education zone. You have to make sure you're still not talking over their head too far. So when in doubt, ask yourself, what is the awareness level of my potential client? Like, how much can I actually talk about where they're not just going to be like, I don't know what is going on here. Ask, will she recognize this language, or am I using expert jargon? Sometimes there's jargon that we think is just common language because it's something we talk about or think about every single day, and we don't realize this is not stuff that other people think is normal. So it's actually jargon for them. So will your person recognize this language? Does she know that she has the problem to begin with? That's a big one. You're going to do much better. Sales will be much easier if she is aware that she has the problem and is looking for a solution for it. But for some of you, it's kind of like you have to get their attention by something they're already thinking about, and then you let them know that they have a problem. Part of the education part for you is, so this is what's going on for you. This is a problem. So you have to meet them where they're at, like I keep saying. And then another question to ask yourself is, does she know that solutions like mine exist? So a lot of times I see coaches who are writing their copy and they just go straight into like, it's a one-on-one coaching program. And when I think about their audience, I'm like, I don't know if those people know what coaching is. So ask yourself, does she even understand what my solution is? Does she understand what coaching is? Or if you're not a coach, whatever your actual business is, do you have to do a little bit of education around what the solution is in the first place? So that's all that we've got for the training today. I hope this gets you started. Don't forget to use the workbook that came with this training, because it's going to take you through some exercises to help you start turning some of this into copy you can actually use right away. And for those of you who are like, oh, that was great, and you know you're not going to get very far with it on your own, or if maybe you dive into it and you do work on it and you're like, this is good, I think I need a little bit more help, or I just have a larger project that goes beyond the scope of what we just talked about in this one short video. So if you want some more help with your writing or your messaging, let's talk, because this is what I love to do. I can help you brainstorm your content, plan your overall strategy for a website, a launch, email campaign, editorial calendar. I can help you work on your messaging more, how to talk about your business in the first place. And so let's just talk it out and see what's going on. What I'm doing for people who have signed up for this free training as a thank you, I'm also offering you a complimentary strategy session. And you can sign up for that session at copylove.com. Love is spelled L-U-V, copylove.com/copy-love-session. They're little hyphens, copy-love-session. And on that call, it's going to be a free call, and we'll talk about what you have on your plate, where you're getting stuck, and then we'll talk about different ways for you to move forward and get it done. And don't worry, there is absolutely no obligation to hire me or buy anything from me from this call. This is just my gift to you to see where I can get you started and moving again, so you can start building your business even more. And with that said, thanks for being here. This was Copy That Resonates, how to find the exact words that attract your ideal clients and get them excited to work with you. My name is Cheryl Binney, and I can't wait to see what you create. Bye.